Hey guys, it's Matthew here once again, and in case you weren't aware, Diablo 3 still exists. It's been updated, a couple times a year maybe for the past few years, and typically it just goes through a few seasons, couple seasons a year, where not much changes except a few new legendary items are introduced or some sets, and some sets are maybe revamped to give more percentages and bigger numbers and let you progress through greater rifts over and over. But the past couple days, the patch 2.5 notes came out. And the main thing in these, basically, that I've understood is there's going to be primal ancient items. So currently in the Diablo system, there are legendary items. When you find a legendary, there's something like a 1 in 10 chance of it becoming an ancient item, which is the same item, but with better stats across the board. And now there's going to be primal items, which basically are better versions of ancient items. So still the same legendary, just better stats than the legendary version, then better stats than the ancient version, ultimately to the primal version, which is the top tier of stats for that item. So just slowly the bigger and bigger numbers are coming into Diablo 3, and those playing the game already know that the numbers are getting pretty ridiculous. I just went onto the Twitch and checked out the latest or the top stream. Guys running something like Greater Rift 100. The lowest monsters, or the white monsters in the Greater Rift, have something like at least 1 trillion health. The tougher ones have something like 20 trillion. The tougher monsters, the blue or the magic type stuff, have like 100 trillion. The bosses have a quadrillion, and you're hitting for something like hundreds of millions to billions worth of damage yourself, maybe sometimes even trillions. I haven't really kept up with it too much myself. But yeah, back when I played, or the last time I seriously played Diablo 3 is when I think Greater Rifts were first being introduced, and I got something to pretty much like top 10 on the leaderboard for a couple weeks with my Crusader, and I was hitting for, a few million maybe, and the numbers weren't quite that substantial, but every subsequent season that's come out, the numbers have been getting bigger and bigger, and it's just more and more RNG really coming through for Greater Rifts. So if you're unaware of the Greater Rift system, you basically it's like a never-ending scaling of maps that just get harder and harder, and the numbers get bigger and bigger, and it gets tougher and tougher to progress. So you just need better stats in your character, and ultimately also to just find the perfect Greater Rift. You have to keep running rifts until you get the perfect layout with the perfect mob types and then the perfect Rift Guardian. So that's already a huge level of RNG just to be able to progress and also actually compete against the top people in the game right now, which is a pretty large reason of why I wasn't too interested in the Greater Rift system when I got to it, especially near the top of the leaderboards. It was just too painful having to fish through Greater Rifts, through just levels of RNG until you could actually have an attempt at a proper rift. So there's that level of RNG, but the legendaries and the items themselves are just a whole nother kettle of fish now, especially with the primal ancient items. Currently, with the system of legendaries, you basically it's just a huge slot machine. What this all means is you're basically chasing a bullshit carrot on a stick. So the whole game is around basically building up your character to get stronger and stronger and find the right items and slowly perfect them into becoming as good as possible to then clear the best possible Greater Rift. But what you're doing is you have a carrot on a stick, which is the legendary you're looking for. You then have, once you actually catch your carrot, you then have a 1 in 100 chance of that item being the one you're looking for. So let's say you're looking for a particular mace. You have a 1 in 100 chance of it being the right mace. You then have a 1 in 100 chance, or 1 in 10 chance, let's just say, of it being ancient. So then, yeah, that's already really bad. You then have a 1 in 10 chance of it having some really decent stats that you're actually looking for, because there's only a certain specific combination of stats that you actually want on your weapon to then become viable. You then have to roll those stats, 1 in 10 chance, let's just say again, to be pretty much perfect for the level of weapon you're looking for. And now, on top of that, you have to have that 1 in 10 chance of the 1 in 10 chance of it being ancient and then primal ancient. So it's just a huge level of RNG and slot machine, and there's not really anything you can do about it except for just grind a lot and hope you can get to that level of item, because the whole game is basically solo self-found nowadays. There's no, trading, there's no auction house. So you are forced to just pray to God you get the right stuff, and then you can compete against people on the top Greater Rift levels by also grinding the Greater Rifts and getting the perfect Greater Rift. So you will be basically doing the same thing throughout the game the entire time, with your regular legendary items, and then your ancient items, and then your primal items, and you just get bigger and bigger numbers, and that's all there is to it at the moment. Now, don't get me wrong, Path of Exile has its own problems, but Diablo 3 right now, to me, feels about as deep as a puddle. It's just so shallow in what it does, because all you do is level through from 1 to 70 in a few hours, and then you're just throwing yourself at rifts non-stop, trying to come up with the best items possible through series of RNG, and then you have basically one best build that's going to compete at the top of the Greater Rift ladders, because with a system that just has unending scaling, only really one build can come out on top unless you have perfect balancing across the board with all these different types of builds, and then it's just up to whichever one you pick, and that is pretty damn impossible, as we know. So currently their system is just to revamp some items and some sets every few months with tens of thousands of percent towards certain damage of a certain skill, so then you can change builds a little bit, but you'll be doing the same shit and grinding the same shit, and hopefully finding or getting lucky enough to find your perfect items. And that just, for me, I just can't come back to that game, because that's all it is at the moment, and that's all it has been for the past few years, and it's not really anything different for me. As much as I loved Diablo 3 for a while, I played it for, a good year or two when it first came out and put in several thousand hours. It wasn't perfect, it had a lot of flaws, but I could still play it and I still enjoyed it. By the time Path of Exile came out, it just, I did, eventually try it. I was pretty tentative, but once I got into it, I realized just how shallow Diablo 3 is in its current state, and I pretty much cannot ever come back to it unless a lot of things change. So every time I try and do some Diablo 3, I just realize how much less there is to do here and think about than in Path of Exile. Though don't get me wrong, Diablo 3 plays very well, it's very smooth, it's very fun, just playing it for a few hours and a week maybe in total for a new season. Now you may say they don't have the same sort of business model as a game like Path of Exile, where you buy the game once in Diablo 3 and then the expansion, and that's it. So they don't owe you anything beyond that. You don't pay them anymore. They've given you the game, so you can't unfairly expect them to keep updating the game and making it better and changing and all that. But my answer to that is basically, this type of model just cannot compete in the world of ARPGs anymore. Because of games like Path of Exile or a Grim Dawn or whatever. Diablo 3 just isn't changing enough. It's not bringing enough new content to the table fast enough, especially given what its competitors are doing. So if there was no Path of Exile, if there were no alternatives, if there weren't any other games, maybe I'd still be happy playing D3 every now and again. But considering I have the option of coming back to another game like Path of Exile, where they just keep updating stuff, where they keep giving you new content, expansions, patches, revamps, all kinds of stuff, it's just no competition. I really cannot justify it. And this whole primal ancient system, when someone first told me that there's now ancient items, I thought it was a bit of a joke. And then I checked for myself, and holy shit, it's real. So yeah, that's just a bit of a rant about Diablo 3. I hope that there's better stuff in the future. I'm very doubtful at this point. Even a Diablo 4, if that comes out, I'll be pretty skeptical about what it can and can't do, and I might have to wait to see if it's any good before I buy it. Though being a streamer, I will probably have to get in right on the ground floor off day one, if such a thing even exists. So yep, thanks for watching again, and see you next time.